Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Playing World of Tanks. I'm AJ, and today we'll be looking at a game that I had on the Siegfried line in the 113, which is the Chinese tier 10 heavy tank. I am a big fan of this heavy tank, and I've played a couple of games in the past couple of weeks to sort of like try to grind out the third mark of excellence. I've gotten to about 90% on this tank, but that's about it. The last 5% is going to be somewhat tough, but you know, we'll see. And probably be the first and last tank that I get 3 marks of excellence. Maybe I'll try it on the 1-to-1 if you know, if it gets a slight buff to its gun depression. But on Siegfried line, I take a chance on this map, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rush into the middle of the map. There's a little pocket with which you can control sort of like the center area of the map, but you need pretty good hull armor and a pretty good turret for that, and which the 113 has. So as I make my way towards that pocket, I encounter the enemy IS-7, and I fire on the move, angle my track, and even though the tracks eat it, somehow it winds up killing the driver, which is kind of interesting. But at this point I don't really need the driver anymore. I'm fairly close range, and you know, it's not gonna affect the rest of the game in any way, shape or form. So I'm coming to this point where all these buildings sort of like intersect. There's a little square in which you can hide. Now I see the AMX-50B rush forward, try to put a shot into me, but I know that the shot, it's kind of like a tough shot to make from that corner. The 50B tries again, and all he manages to do is bounce off the 113's armor. Here I sort of go back and try to bait the 50B to stick around slightly longer, but he doesn't bite. I put another shot into him, and here I sort of like underestimate how much gun depression that tank has, and he winds up putting a shell in my side. Now I make a mistake here in that I could have gone around and actually finished him off, but at the same time I did not know where the MX-5120 was, and because of not knowing that, I actually don't want to risk losing a lot of health, and so I stick around over here, but the MX-5120 dies to the RD on our team, I think. So that's one tank eliminated and one acutely crippled. Now I'm just gonna stay here, take shots at anything that's gonna come up the middle. I try to poke the side, see if I can get the I-7. I kind of like see the 50Bs just hanging around, and unfortunately for me, he had reloaded by the time I poked the corner, and I actually take a shot for my effort. Here I try to see if I can put another shot in the 50B, but he doesn't want to bite. It was a poor shot on my part too. I aimed for the hull instead of the turret, which is actually the weakest part of the tank. I see the Batchat has moved forward onto my flank, and so I start putting shells into him. Now I wait, and I think the Batchat was trying to get a shot onto me. I try to hide my lower plate as quickly as I can, because that being the weakest part on this tank will actually help me absorb some damage. But it seems like the Batchat just wants to run away at this point, realizing that he's in a disadvantageous position. He doesn't want to fight this one out. I turn around anticipating that he might actually come around and try to take more shots at me, but at the same time I see a Leopard 1 just going in through the open, and I managed to nail him in the side. The Leopard 1 side armor is pretty weak. He might have had at a very cute angle, but the problem is that the gun I'm firing is 122mm, and his side armor is, I'm pretty sure, less than 30, or maybe 30. I don't remember. So I'm gonna overmatch it pretty easily. And over here I see an E75 driving out sideways. I nail him as well, just for good measure. And then I see that the Leopard 1 has come into the middle, in the same spot that the 50B had died earlier. As I turn around to take shots at the Leopard 1, he, I think, mistakenly or quickly realizes that I have the upper hand, and decides to leave that area again. At this point I'm just hanging around here, trying to figure out which way do we want to push, because the thing is, even though we have like killed a lot of tanks in the city, but we are not really so sure what or where should we be going next. So the leopard one comes around, takes a shot at my friend. I managed to track him, but the E75 comes out and finishes my friend off. The E75 also gets taken out by the FV on our team, so it was 2 tanks exchanged for 1. I don't know whether that was a good trade, I guess, but you know, they did take out 1 tank and we took out 2, so I guess that was a better trade on our part at tier 10 and tier 9 for tier 10. So now I'm watching this IS-7. I did not know whether he wanted to commit coming out and actually engaging me, and IS-7 can poke the corner slightly more effectively than I can, just because it has pike nose, and also the fact that its frontal armor is way thicker than mine is, so he might be able to easily pen, whereas I won't be able to. Now I see a T-57 YOLOing into the middle of the map. I don't know what he was doing. Maybe he kind of realized that the match was lost anyways, and if he was gonna get some damage done, now was the time. And I decided to go around and save the T-34 on our team. The T-57, instead of like making sure his shots count, he fires 2 without actually penning, and I managed to come around and put an additional shot into the T-57. Now I know he has a 20-second reload, so I've switched to heat rounds. I don't want to bounce a shell because that might actually result in me taking 1600 damage, which I am not willing to do so. And the FV, for good measure, finishes him off as well. Now we move on, and this is more or less a clean up duty now, just because their last heavy tank that was pretty threatening just threw his tank away for 2 shots of damage. And at this point I just have too much health for the enemy to whittle down effectively. I am willing to take the shots from the SIS-7 in order to finish him off, and now I decide to move on and take out the rest of the enemy team, which I'm guessing is sitting somewhere in front of me. That includes 3 artillery. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. This was actually an ace tanker in the 113. I will link the replay in the description down below if you really want to look at the post-game stats, and I'll see you in the next episode of Playing World of Tanks.